Hey folks, welcome back to Macro Crazy. Just a quick video on a Sunday night. Merry Christmas for those of you who celebrate. Happy holidays for the rest. Just wanted to quickly cover some Morgan Stanley macro research for 2023. We already did Goldman Sachs, so might as well just quickly go through it. Some of it is very similar, and some of it might be a little bit different and worth discussing at least. Okay, getting started. Peak inflation Q4, no shock there. I believe we've already hit that. Central bank pause by early Q1 of 23. No surprise there again. That should go across the board, like globally, pretty much Q1 is the peak of interest rate hikes. Okay, from a growth perspective, in 2023 in the US, Morgan Stanley calling for 0.5% in the US. Not a recession, but it's very slow growth. UK and EU, though, they are calling for a contraction, which would, assuming it's 2 quarters in a row, would be a recession unless you're Joe Biden, in which case it's just something else, but not a recession. In the emerging markets, you should look for some resiliency and some positive growth, especially in the second half of 2023. So in the US, the good news is the labor market is easing a little bit. So, the inability to find employees, which was one of the contributors for inflation, that should be giving us some flexibility in 2023. Of course, that does mean a slightly higher unemployment rate, but not terrible. Somewhere in the fours, low fours, I think is what Morgan Stanley is calling for. Okay, and then also the supply chain normalization. That's also going to help with inflation pressures. So that's both those things are contributing to Morgan Stanley's call of inflation falling in the U.S. in the second half of 2023 to around 2.4%. So the sum of that picture, basically, according to Morgan Stanley, is a soft landing in 2023, followed by a very tepid recovery in 2024. Who knows how long that tepid recovery will last. So as mentioned previously, Morgan Stanley calling for a peak in interest rates in Q1 in the U.S., specifically January. Rates peaking 4.5 to 4.75%. They're not expecting any interest rate cuts in 2023. They're looking for cuts throughout 2024, though. And additionally, for those who are interested, they're not looking for outright mortgage-backed securities sales. The Fed appears to be just letting securities mature off. So no additional pressure from that perspective for the housing market. And don't look for widespread layoffs in 2023 if you're just going to get a soft landing. Unemployment rate should peak around 4.3%. In the EU and the UK, though, the picture is a little less friendly. Morgan Stanley looking for a mild recession, contraction 0.5% or so in the EU. Peak in interest rates of about 2.5%. 2024 growth, I don't know if you call this tepid or back to trend, not quite trend, but somewhere around 1%, 0.9% in 2024. Unemployment rate, yeah, it's going to weaken, but not much, so nothing too damaging there. UK, though, less friendly, even less friendly. It's going to be minus 1.5% in 2023. 4% peak in interest rates. So, if you're in the UK, sorry, you're going to have to buckle up. All right, in China, the reopening, of course, is going to bolster growth. No surprise there. But much of that growth is going to come in the second half of 2023. But growth is projected to be 5% in 2023. Man, I can't even talk today. Apologies, guys. In Japan, growth is projected to be 1.2%. For an aging population and a shrinking country, 1.2 is positive, so it's a good deal. There's tons of savings in Japan, so that's where I think consumption is going to come from. India is the star, though, of the show for the next couple of years. Growth of above 6% without excessive inflation. So that's great news. I'm sure you can see all the companies offshoring their labor needs to India. So that's one of the reasons. And as well, there's new manufacturing opening up there, trying to get out of the clutches of the communist Chinese. Who knows? But yeah, India has a bright future. So good for them. Finally, normalization in Asia, meaning China, India, Southeast Asia, is going to or could bolster export demand from the EU and even the US. So that could soften any recession or slowdown in economies. So what does that mean for us? All right, well, obviously you can look at exporters, especially ones who are exporting to India, maybe other countries. So that's one option, but be selective about that. Consumer staples, of course. Um, I would, I'm still negative the dollar, US dollars, so be cautious about that, short or out. That's kind of my view. But sluggish growth in the West, the future is in the emerging markets, especially in Asia, especially in India. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you like it.